Hi, I'm Archer Sullivan, author of the Annie Gore novels, The Witch's Orchard, and Brimstone Hollow. Welcome to One Final Twist.
I am super excited to get to talk to you, mostly because you are an outstanding, up and coming, making a lot of noise Appalachian crime fiction author right now. And the fact that this takes place, kind of where I'm at, and we're gonna have things we gotta talk about like Mount Zion, Church of Christ. We're gonna have to get on that one a little bit, in a good way. But this to me is really important. I'm really excited to talk about Annie Gore, the private investigator, all of the things that go with your novels, because it's not just crime fiction, it's not just Appalachian. There's a lot of layers to every story. Will you tell us about Brimstone? Tell us a little bit about Annie and then Brimstone Hollow.
All right, Annie is a private eye. She is originally from Southern Kentucky and she went into the Air Force right after high school. And once she was done with that, she moved back to Kentucky, only this time to Louisville, where she became a private investigator. And now she goes around investigating. I think most of her time is probably spent doing really mundane things, but we don't get books about her, looking at cheating spouses and insurance cases. What we get are the things like looking for missing little girls. And in Brimstone Hollow, she is investigating the death of a snake handling preacher.
All right, so just go straight to Mount Zion Church of Christ. You know that's in London, like really close to where I am, and we actually worked with them when we had the tornadoes came through London. My Church of Christ worked with them, so I didn't know if it was really based on that church. Have you been there? Do you have people there, or if it was just luck of the draw for a name?
Yeah, it was just luck of the draw. I went through a lot of different names. I think originally it was Gethsemane, Church of maybe Church of God. But Gethsemane is one of those things that I think if you grew up in the South or you grew up in a sort of evangelical background, you know how to say that. And if you didn't, you might not. And it looks like a fantasy novel word if you're not used to it. So I tried generally to make names of things easy to read off the page, easy for the listeners to hear and process if they're listening on audio, and easy to just see it. And so it just seemed like Mount Zion was a much better, it's a very common name for churches and for small towns in the South and in Appalachia. So, but it still is has foundations in the Bible. So that's why we went with it.
It's just funny. Like we have that. We have a Zion Road. I mean, there's a lot of that, little pieces to that, and just really in probably every county that's around
Mhm.
on the eastern part of the state.
Yeah, it's one of those things I think when you're writing fiction and you're doing fictional towns and coming up with everything that is just sort of imaginary, you can either make something that definitely doesn't exist anywhere, or it's so common that it could exist anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I would just went with the second one for this.
Where did you get the idea for Annie?
Well, I love Private Eye. I love the Robert Parker Spencer novels are, I
Mhm.
mean, they're they're behind me. It's all those right there. Um, and I love that kind of character. I love Archie in the Nero Wolfe books and the Sue Grafton novels, the Kinsey novels. I like a character who can operate between the lines. I like somebody who can go in and sort of find their own justice within a case. I mean, I love police procedurals. I love to watch them. I love to read them. And I really like thrillers and I like amateur sleuth, but I think that where my interest lies as a writer is in private investigator. So for years, I was trying to come up with a private investigator character and story. And Annie is just sort of she's not me, but she is a sort of version of who I might have been. And like if I were tougher and cooler and more interesting and better had better social skills and like a lot like if she were just, generally like a better character. Um that is really where she came from. I think I wanted to write really, really what happened was I wanted to read a private investigator novel about a tough female who was from the kind of place I was from and went to the kinds of places I've been to.
Mhm.
And that didn't exist. And I realized it was never going to exist. And I might as well stop waiting for it and just write it myself.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts about Annie is that her character develops across the story. So you get a little bit not just like it's not just you got this revelation in book one or this revelation in book two. As she's investigating, she develops as a character. So knowing that you have time to develop this character across the stories and cross series, how do you plan on what you're gonna reveal to the reader each time?
It's it's interesting. I think that I have a general idea and I have a lot of notes about Annie's backstory, but a lot of what I reveal each time comes out at sort of toward the end of the process of writing the book. I I often will have an idea of like I think this is what the flashbacks are going to be about. It's going to be about this thing. And then I get to the end of the book and I realize like no, that doesn't actually fit because I like for the flashbacks that she has and the way that her character develops to intertwine with the themes of the plot itself. And sometimes you can start out with an idea that sounds really good and then you get into it and it actually doesn't end up working. And that happened with the second book. And it's just one of those things that I think you can parse out in very small pieces and it ends up adding up to more than you would think it would. Like I think the way that I do it in both of these books and in the third one that's in progress right now, you don't actually get probably the number of pages that you get with of Annie's backstory is probably about 10 pages. But they're important moments from her life. And so just having that, I think your life is so many millions of moments and just getting like 5 or 10 a book, it adds up to more than you'd think it would.
Do you plot out everything or do you just start writing and let her rip?
No, I plot and then my characters have ideas about things that are different from mine. Um, I know before I start a book, I have to know what really is going on. I have to know who is the bad guy or multiple bad guys. I have to know what the conclusion that I'm driving toward is. Like, where is Annie in the last scene? What am I driving toward? And I need to know the key players. But in the middle, I have a plan, but it changes because if you get into it and your characters are real, they will start doing things that you didn't necessarily like. Annie's like, I'm just gonna break into this place. Like, okay, I mean, I guess so. Like, I don't know how to fight you on that.
I definitely think she's a little more sassy this time. She's especially when they find, let's see, when they find the not the preacher, but the next dead body. And she's kind of like looking at that sheriff. She gets a little attitude like this is what we're gonna do right now. So I think she's coming in, she's getting a little stronger.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I think in the first book, it's a I never thought about it this way, but I think I have a real melancholy streak, and that really came out in the first book. And so the first one is a lot of like really, really downtrodden characters and Annie going around talking to them, and it's hard to find places for her to be sassy in a situation like that. Whereas this one has a lot more gritty crime elements to it. And the chief of police is the kind of person that Annie can sass and kind of push the boundaries on. And I really enjoyed that.
What kind of research did you have to do? Did you visit snake handling churches, or what kind of research do you have to do for this one?
I watched, well, I have some books about snake handling and some anthropology stuff, and I watched some documentaries about it. It's illegal in Kentucky. It's not illegal in, I think, West Virginia. Um, but I did the things that I researched that will really stay with me are what snake bites do to a person,
Oh yeah.
which is really something. It's one of those things that like growing up in the mountains, you know about. You definitely like one time when I went fishing, I caught a water moccasin on a fishing pole. You definitely learn as a kid to avoid snakes and you know it's bad, but once you start doing research, it's like, oh, this is something I will never get out of my head now. So there's definitely that and what where antivenom comes from and the fact that like you can be allergic to the treatment itself, which is, I mean, it's pretty wild. So that
Yeah.
definitely, and then there are some other crime elements in the book that um, I did a lot of research about the extra plot stuff that I'm not sure
Yeah.
I should go into, but
Yeah. And
yeah, it was definitely, and just I grew up in a town like Mount Zion and went to, well, I grew up in a lot of towns. I moved around a lot as a kid. I went to 13 different schools before high school, and I kind of just tried a bunch of churches as a kid. I would just go with whoever because like they'd feed me for a weekend if I went to church with them. And so I ended up in, I mean, all kinds of churches as a kid. And unfortunately, fortunately, none of them were snake handling churches. But
I was raised Pentecostal, and a funny little story that to go with your snake handling. One of the elder ladies of the church, super sweet woman. Anyway, we've got an altar and a stage, I guess you could say, where the preacher is. And on each side of the stage, there are these real pretty ornate boxes that have locks on them. And they are prayer boxes. You put a prayer request in there, and the preacher gets them out at a later date and prays, and does that. The little lady, she stood up one Sunday and said, "We need to get rid of these snake boxes." She said, "Because these people that come in here visiting thinks there's snakes in those things. That's why the locks are on them." And that was just a funny little thing. We don't handle snakes. We never did. That's just an old myth about Pentecostals in Tennessee. Now, up in Appalachia, up in western or East Tennessee and Kentucky, they may handle snakes. In West Tennessee, we don't we don't handle snakes. But I just thought that was really funny and how you can, you just hear these little wee stories about snakes and all that. So
well, and you never know because that's the kind of place that a snake will get into, and then you
yeah.
reach your hand in and find out it's not just a prayer box anymore.
Yeah.
So I got to ask about Leo. I feel like maybe the question is, are you just torturing us like for the love of Pete? Because they're so perfect. And I love the description of the relationship in this book. Something to the effect of that they know that they're soulmates. They don't want anybody else, but they're never going to admit it. But that's okay.
Yeah, I love that relationship. I think I have a plan for bringing Leo in, but it's not the next book.
So it is torture then for the readers a little bit.
A little bit. I think you have to, I think the problem here is, well, it's not a problem, but I think Leo, from what I have come to understand, is that people really want to meet Leo in a bad way. And I think I need to get Annie more established as her own character before I bring him in. There's a thing, I don't know if you read the Spencer novels, but Hawk in the Spencer novels is one of my favorite characters. He's one of the characters of all the like one of the favorite characters of all the fans of the Spencer novels, maybe the favorite character. Maybe he's more of a favorite character than Spencer himself. And he's just such a big personality and so like qualified to do everything. Once you bring a character that powerful into a story, like you better be prepared to need what he can offer, and also to not have to know how to not rely on that every book thereafter, which I think is just one of those things that, Leo is kind of, he's not magical at this point, but I think like with Hawk, you always knew like he can handle himself in literally any situation. And Leo is definitely the same way. He's one of the things that I think works so well about Annie is how vulnerable she is. You read books a lot of especially like really masculine crime fiction. You've got a hero that is really big and really strong and really smart, and they can do anything and you're never worried about them. And one of the things that I like about Annie is that she's little and she's not a genius and she's not a crack shot and she's not like super muscular. And if she got in a fight, I mean, she can throw a punch, but like then what? And so I think I like having her out there kind of vulnerable. Once you bring Leo in, she's gonna have it's like having a bear with you all the time. Who's gonna mess with that? So, but I'm excited to bring him in. I know how I want to bring him in, and it's just about selling it to my publisher.
Speaking of, congratulations on the deal for book three. Is there anything you can tell us a little bit about book three that
Yeah,
comes
book
out next year?
three. Yep. Hopefully it will be out around the same time next year. So like the first couple weeks of August. It is called Hemlock Creek, and it is Annie goes to a tiny town in West Virginia to look for a girl who's gone missing while on a Bigfoot hunt.
Ah.
So
Okay,
first book
honey,
witches, second book snake handling, third book Bigfoot.
I think those are all like,
It
reasonable things that happen here.
Yes.
is, yeah.
I want to ask about Honey. Did you have that car, or was she's Honey is so specific and so important, um, that I have to ask. Like, was that your vehicle or somebody in your family that?
Oh, I wish. I love old Japanese sports cars. And when I was a kid, my family did have a Datsun, but it was like not the cool Datsun. It was a little, oh, I'm trying to remember the number of it because it was a number, but it was a little blue hatchback. And I remember riding around in that car when I was a kid and I loved it. And later, when I was a teenager, I had a Mazda 323, which I loved. I still just really I like hatchbacks and I like cars. And so I think it's not as much of a thing in books, but like in TV, PIs have great cars. Rockford had a great car. And with Annie, I wanted to give her that too. I wanted her to have a car with a personality. Also because I think as a PI, you're talking directly to the reader, but for somebody, especially like Annie, who is, like Spencer always stayed in Boston and Kinsey was pretty much always in Santa Teresa. But Annie is always going out into towns where she's a stranger and she doesn't have anybody to confide in. She doesn't have anybody to talk to. And so she talks to her car. And it's not all the time, it's not like a running conversation, but it gives her a sort of sense of companionship while she's away. And I always talked to my cars and still do. I drive a Mini now and I'm a car person and I wanted to give Annie something interesting. And I think when I was researching and I knew about those old Datsuns, they're so rare now. Because they did have rust problems, but that was one that I thought when I saw it, I thought this is the right personality for Annie.
You kind of mentioned the Spencer novels earlier. Who are some of your inspirations, the authors that influenced your writing?
Well, definitely Robert Parker. And I found the Sue Grafton novels later. I also love Agatha Christie. I mean, you can say that she's a little papery and that her character development isn't great, and there are plenty of other things that people complain about with Agatha Christie. But her mystery plotting when she was on top of her game was so strong. And she was really kind of inventing the genre that she was in, this cozy house, closed community crime. And to have these cases where, you've got this ultimate disruption, this ultimate crime of a murder within this otherwise seemingly idyllic community, I think is it's just really appealing, and that's one of the reasons why her books have gone on to be, as popular as they still are, almost 100 years later, maybe now actually 100 years later.
Yeah.
So I love the Agatha Christie stuff. Anne Cleeves, certainly, I think that is a similar kind of thing with a small community, and it's very atmospheric, which I like. But also, like, growing up, my biggest influences were fantasy and sci-fi. Like, I love
Uh,
Douglas Adams, I love Robin McKinley, Lois Bujold, who wrote the Four Kosygin novels. I love all of her stuff. So I think it's just sort of all over the place.
I
Oh, and
laugh.
also like X-Files. You can't, I
yeah.
Oh,
mean,
Yeah.
you can look back at specific X-Files episodes and be like, oh, that's a main ingredient for
Yeah.
her.
I want to talk about Appalachia for a minute because that's one part that I like about this book is that it's part of a character, but it's like I think we're misunderstood, and I think each region there are so people think Appalachian and they don't really realize how big it is,
Yeah.
and how like West Virginia versus up in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Kentucky, every part has its own personality. And
Hmm.
I've spent a lot of time like hiking and going and all through the Appalachian Trail, and I love it. But it's easy to be made fun of. It's easy to exaggerate, and it's easy to misunderstand. But
Hmm.
like when you're in this small town, when you're in this one particularly, like the dialogue is not like necessarily like you're sitting in cornbread. You know what I mean? Like but it's close. It's right there. Like your sheriff is a little plainer. But then when Thelma was a little more country, and you appreciate like all of those little nuances between that. How do you keep your character straight when it's something that specific?
I think a lot of it comes out of writing from my own life. And like I said, I moved around a lot. I moved, I say I went to 13 schools before high school. That doesn't even take into account the number of times I went back to the same school after leaving 6 months before. I've moved 37 times. So I was always the new kid. I was always the stranger in a new town. And one of the things, I don't have a lot of an accent, but I didn't have a lot of an accent by the time I left high school. And that's mostly because I moved around so much that your accent is formed by your peer group. And I never had one for very long. My accent came more from watching like Star Trek and the X-Files than it did, because those were the most consistent like relationships in my life. But I was always around these people. I was around people like Thelma. I was around people like Dishman and like Shepard and like Gavin, the number two officer in this book. These are people that I grew up around, and I think I sort of absorbed those ways of speaking, those ways of looking at things. And I think that's, I never thought of myself even as Appalachian. It never occurred to me until I moved out. When I moved to California, suddenly I was made very aware of the fact that I was from Appalachia, and people would, I mean, like I was at a doctor's office the first month I lived here. I had a sinus infection, and she mentioned something about, me moving here. And I said I was from Eastern Kentucky. And she said, well, that can't be true. You're wearing shoes. And it just, I had no, I mean, when I was a kid and I would live, like my mom lived in North Carolina, my dad lived in Kentucky, and I go back and forth between them. And the Kentucky kids would give me the business about my North Carolina accent, and the North Carolina kids would give me the business about my Kentucky accent. And eventually it just sort of melded into one weird thing. But I never thought about it too much while I lived there. I only thought about it once I moved away, and I missed it. I missed those kinds of people. I missed those Thelma types, like my Aunt Rhea is, and also my grandma, and my Aunt Roxy and my mother-in-law are all sort of ingredients for Thelma. And the kids I grew up around are ingredients for Gavin. And the kids' dads that I would go to church with are ingredients for Dishman. And I think they all just sort of live in here. And then when I go to write them, it just comes out.
Yeah.
I don't I don't know. I mean, I think that's just kind of it's all in there. And I think every writer fears the day that they just run out. And hopefully that won't happen. But so far, so good, I think.
Well, I noticed that. I noticed that, the different levels of the people, like their education and even how those people were raised, that all it really does affect how you're going to speak.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, because I didn't like my dad's side of the family. My dad was the first one to go to college, and it was similar on my mom's side. My mom's mom went to college, but she went back as an adult after her kids were mostly grown, and she got her teaching certificate. And I think the assumption outside of Appalachia is that if you didn't go to college or whatever, you a lot of people assume that we didn't even graduate high school, and or that if you didn't graduate high school that means you're illiterate and you don't know anything about the world. And like the idea of independent education, of being curious about the world and
Mhm.
looking for things yourself, or having a different kind of intelligence or a different kind of literacy, often doesn't occur to people. I mean, my grandma, I knew how to read before I went to school because my grandma taught me to read when I was 5 years old. And it didn't have anything to do with going to school. And so I think, you know what? I don't know where I was going with all this, but it was probably somewhere.
It's a tricky subject. My mom will tell you that she learned to spell on the back of a fertilizer bag.
Yeah,
And I mean, that's just how it was done. And
yeah,
that, I mean, that's just how it is. And she ended up going to college and doing just fine. But I think this whole area is very misunderstood, very overlooked, and not really appreciated, or maybe lumped into something big. But I'm gonna be real
yeah.
honest with you. If I had to pick a zombie apocalypse team, every single one of them would come out of this area. I wouldn't pick anybody
100%. 100%. I mean, we have been trying to find a house back in the East because it's like we live in California. This place, like an earthquake is just around the corner. And we have always thought if anything terrible happens, we are going to be well off to be back in Appalachia around our families and around the people that like know how to how to grow a garden. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's absolutely true. We have, I mean, my little neighborhood. I mean, I'm not worried if my door is locked or if my car is locked. And the
yeah,
kids down the street, they're a little more than a quarter a mile away. They'll come down at dark and be like, "Hey, you got any?" They call them fruit. You got any of those pears? And they mean peppers. So they come and get a green pepper out of the garden or a tomato. I'm like, "Yep." And now I've got to walk you home. How did you get
yeah,
down here? You're 5.
yeah,
But I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. That's the community that we have here. You can put people together and know what everybody's doing. And, if I went to the IGA and got ribs in 2 days, that same checker is going to see me at church and ask me how my ribs were. And
yes.
I love
Yeah,
that.
100%. I mean, in my family, my mom's family all live on the same mountain that my family has lived on since, I mean, generations and generations. So, like, my great grandparents lived in the house that my great aunt lives in now, and this land just keeps getting handed down, and the properties on it are, and it's just the same little community. And when Hurricane Helene came through last year, my mom keeps chickens. Now she keeps goats as well. And those eggs that my mom had were the only kind of fresh protein anybody was getting on that mountain for a while. I mean, that hurricane was bad where they were. And you have stuff like that. Like when I mentioned my grandma teaching me to read, and at the same time, I would stay with her and she would take me up into the hill and show me the different edible plants that you could just find. And it's something that I never thought of as being different or remarkable until I was grown and talked to other people from not in that region and learned that, like, other people don't know the names of plants, like, or rocks, or animals, or the bird songs that are around there. And I think everybody's family has different interests and things they know about, but it gets handed down. I mean, it did when I was a kid, at least, and probably still.
We're getting close to pub day, so kind of tell us. I know you're coming to Louisville, so
Yep.
kind of give us the what's going on for you and where you'll be.
Yes, ma'am. So, Louisville, we will be there at Third Turn Brewery in J-Town at 7 o'clock. That's the launch night. And I think they may have some kind of special cocktail that they have come up with. I don't know. But the author, James Markert, who wrote the Chain House, which comes out soon, and
Hmm.
Nightmare Man. He will be interviewing me and my husband Scott. Scott is a TV writer here in LA, and he works.
Oh,
He's a writer, executive producer on Reacher. So he's going to talk to us about what it's like to live with two introverted writers who never leave the house and talk about crime writing all day. So that's what we're going to do on the 11th. On the 12th, I will be in Lexington at Joseph Beth with Wes Brown, who wrote Hillbilly Hustle and
mhm.
uh,
They all
all
fall the
they all
same.
fall the
They
same.
all follow the
Yeah,
same. Yeah.
which is amazing. So
Yes.
definitely, and he's wonderful. So come out and see him if you're in the Lexington area. And then on the 13th, I will be in Cincinnati at the Joseph Beth there, all by my lonesome, where I will read and just, talk, ramble like this for as long as until somebody stops me and answering questions that anybody might show up with. So I'd be happy to sign books or whatever else. Probably not whatever else. I don't know what that entails, but definitely sign books.
If somebody wants to get signed copies after your tour, is there a local bookstore they can order from? Do you have any place that will keep a signed stock in?
Yeah, Carmichael's usually, I ended up signing books, extra books for them last year. They can
Okay.
they can order from there. And then I will see about any other places that might be able to keep either book plates or signed copies on hand.
Okay. What are your social media handles and where can people find you on the interwebs?
Um, Let me open my Instagram and find out.
Did
I
you
am
call it the
on
interwebs?
the the world. Let me look on the World Wide Web. It is Archer_Sullivan.
Okay.
That's on Instagram. Now, I'm also on Facebook, but I never go. I mean, my posts get cross-posted to Facebook, but I
Yeah.
never like use it. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think it's probably also Archer_Sul. I'm the worst at social media. I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Um, but yeah, I am on Instagram and I do post there about what I'm up to.
Oh, that's
Okay.
right. I was going to ask you the jujitsu.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, what?
Yeah.
How long have you been doing it? Are you liking it?
I love it. Yeah, I started doing so I do Muay Thai at Yakubian Muay Thai in Chatsworth, and I have been going there for 5, 6 years now. I am not a natural athlete. I have various medical conditions that mean I am a total wimp and not naturally athletic. So, but the great thing about it, I always wanted to do martial arts. I grew up watching kung fu movies and like old samurai movies. And I love martial arts, but I never got to do it. I moved around too much when I was a kid, too poor, etc. So I always wanted to do it as an adult. My husband grew up doing karate, and we always thought when we can find somebody good, we'll try and go. And I saw a documentary about Muay Thai several years ago, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I saw a documentary, and they were like Thai guys kicking banana plants and like bamboo and stuff with their just chopping him down with their legs. And I was like, this. is where I'm at. This is what I want to do. And so we finally found a really great coach, and he has been great because I am just like my kinesthetic awareness, like I run into doors like five, six times a day. I never know where I am in space. And being able to just sort of hone that a lot better has been amazing. And doing like it has helped so many aspects of my life, including just like get it like okay, it's usually in a martial arts gym, it's a while before you spar. Now you hit mitts, you hit pads, but before you actually punch someone in the face, it's usually a while. And if you've got a good coach, then they sort of figure out when that's going to be. The first time I sparred, it was just with my coach, and this is apparently not too uncommon. But I finished sparring and I went in the bathroom and just cried. And apparently that's a thing that like you've been brought up your whole life to not hit people, to not hurt people, and getting over that hump is really hard. And it happens to a lot of people. And it's just one of those things. It's a very emotional, it's got a lot of, you got a lot of stuff going on in there. Once you start like actually putting your fist in somebody's nose, it takes a weird emotional toll on you. And he was really great about it. My husband does this with me, and he was really great about it. And I now it's not such a big deal anymore, but I love it. I mean, it's been great. It's hard, but it's it's been great.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, I thank Sean in the book, my coach. I thank Sean in the book because he's had a huge impact on my life.
Sorry, I forgot to ask that earlier. I had that on my mind when you said that because I
Yeah,
get
if you go on my off neglected social media, you might see a video of me hitting mitts usually. I like elbows and knees.
just get them bony little elbows like
I do.
Thank you today to Archer Sullivan, whose newest book, Brimstone Hollow, is out August the 11th from St. Martin's Press, Minotaur book. Thank you for joining us. Best of luck with your book sales, and y'all have a great day.